Hi there, for today's video we are going to be going over text organization. Go ahead and say that word with me. Text organization. Good. So text organization is how a story or how a text, magazine, whatever that may be, a paper, is organized. Okay? So there's different ways to organize books. What we're going to be focusing on is chronological order. Go ahead and say that with me. Chronological order. Okay? So think of, you have a book. Okay? Now, the author thought, okay, how am I going to organize this book? Am I going to do a problem and then a solution? Am I going to just do first, next, then last? How am I going to set up the book? There's different ways an author can set up a book, right? Well, we are going to focus on chronological order, all right? So, chronological order. It's informational texts. So informational texts are what? Books that give you information. So informational texts have a structure or a type of organization, the way it's set up, that fits the topic and the author's purpose. So these different books that we've been reading, narrative nonfiction, I'm Amelia Earhart, Oscar and the Moth, the story Try This, the story of the Crayon Man, the one we read on Tuesday, and then today's book, Can We Ring the Liberty Bell? These books all give us real information. We're going to be learning from them. There's a topic, okay, and an author's purpose. So we've learned that whenever we're reading an informational book, a book that gives us information, or a narrative nonfiction book, we are going to be learning something. The author's purpose is to inform us, right? Now, these different books we've been reading, they're organized in a way that's called chronological order. The author wrote these books with a first, next, then last. Beginning, middle, end, okay? So, let's read this right here. Text organized by chronological order tell about events in order. They can also explain the steps to make or to do something. So, for example, a recipe, right? Recipes are told in chronological order. First, next, then last. But so are the stories we've been reading in the last couple of days. We've been reading stories that have a first, next, then last. The author wrote them in a chronological order from what happens in the beginning of the story to the middle to the end, right? So, for example, the story Amelia Earhart, it tells from the beginning of her life to the middle of her life until the end of her life. Okay, and then yesterday's story, Oscar and the Moth, the story has a beginning, a first part of the story. So it's one summer evening. And then as the day goes through, different things happen until the story gets to the end, all right? So chronological order. Let's go and look at an example of chronological order so you get a better idea of what I mean, just in case you need an example. So here we have, what does it look like? These pictures that have part of an apple and it says next. Not that much apple at all. It says last. Another part of an apple that has some teeth marks in them. It says then, and then a whole apple that says first. So let's go ahead and think of chronological order. How would we organize these pictures to start from the beginning to the end? Or first, next, then last. Go ahead and take a moment and think about it. All right, so there's two different things we can do. Actually, there's three. So we can use the words as a clue. We can use the pictures as a clue. And then the third thing we can do is use what we already know about apples, right? So right here, let's see. We went over all the pictures. So whenever you have an apple, you first have a whole apple, right? So, and I'm going to use a word first. You start off with a whole apple. So I think that would probably go there for chronological order. It'd be the first one, first, whole apple. Which one would come next? Would it be the one that says last? Does that make sense? First you have a whole apple, then boom, all of a sudden you have barely anything, just the core left? No. Right here, it looks like there's a little bite right here. Next, and then right here is a couple bites. I think it's going to be the one that says next. Why do I think that? Well, it's usually first, next with the words. And if you look right here, you have a whole apple, and then when you start eating an apple, you have just a bite or two, right? Okay, is it going to be first, next, last, then? That doesn't make sense. And do you start off the whole, oops. Back. Do you start off with a whole apple, then a couple bites, and then it's all gone and you have a little bit more? That doesn't make sense. What would make sense is we have first, next, then you have a couple more bites, and then you have last, okay? So that's what chronological order is. Pay attention to the clue words, first, next, then last, first, second, third, fourth, or sometimes for last they say finally, okay? Use the pictures, and also use your knowledge of what is happening in the story, okay? If you're reading a story, let me see, this one right here, Oscar and the Moth, the one we read yesterday. Well, it starts off in the morning, and then throughout the book it gets a little bit later and later and later until it gets to night, right? So use your knowledge of day and night. You start, the morning happens, then the afternoon, then the evening, then the night, and then it starts all over again, okay? So that's chronological order, okay? You have first, next, then, finally, or last. So look for numbers or clue words to understand the order. So I have some words right here I would like for us to focus on. Author's purpose, which we went over yesterday. That's the author's reason for writing. It can either be to persuade you, inform you, or entertain you. But these books we've been focusing on, narrative nonfiction and nonfiction books, they're meant to inform you. The author writes the stories to inform you, to give you real information on a topic. Okay? And then we have text organization. Text organization, go ahead and say that with me. Text organization, good job, is the way a text is arranged to help you, the reader, understand the information. Okay, let's go ahead and go over that. The way a text is arranged to help the reader understand the information. So, right here, I'm Amelia Earhart. This is a text, okay? Text are the words, right? So this book is organized how? How did the author organize it? Well, the author started off from Amelia Earhart's, her childhood, to when she becomes a little bit older, a teenager, a little bit older until she's a young adult. So it follows her life from the beginning of her life, middle to the end, right? So that's how the author organized this book. Every time you have a book, the author organizes it a certain way so to help you best understand the information they're trying to get across, right? So then the next one we have is chronological order. Go ahead and say that with me. Chronological order. Awesome. Chronological order is the order in which the events happen or steps in a process. So lately we've been reading narrative nonfiction books and nonfiction books. So we're learning real information. So there's an order in which the author wants us to understand what is happening. That's the chronological order. They do things first, next, then last, okay? So this book right here, the one from yesterday, Oscar and the Moth, if you think back, Oscar is a cat, and it starts off with, one summer evening, Oscar lay on the warm back step. So evening, okay? That's how it starts off. And throughout the book, it then goes to at night. Then it gets a little bit later. It gets a little bit darker. And then this goes back to even later at night. Okay? So the order of this book, it starts off with, evening, gets a little bit later, then a little bit later, and then a little bit later, right? There's an order in which the story is happening. And it's done that on purpose because the author wants it to start off with it being not super late, but getting to be late. Because the author's trying to explain to us about light and dark. So then right here, steps in a process. Think of directions. Think of recipes. You need to follow the steps in a recipe in order to come out with a good tasting dish, whatever it may be, whether it's cookies or pasta. You need to follow the steps so everything comes out looking and tasting good. Now, directions for playing a game, you need to follow the directions in order so you're playing the game correctly. So that's chronological order. Think of also this: first, next, then last. The process in which something happens. So if you were to get an apple, you get your apple, then what happens? You take a bite. Then you keep eating it. Last, all your apple's gone, right? So that is chronological order. The steps or events that happens in order. And remember, narrative nonfiction is a nonfiction book that gives you facts about a topic. It sounds like a story, but it's nonfiction, so you actually are going to be really learning. So hope you enjoyed today's little lesson over text organization and chronological order.